Say. Okay, let's do the 4 limitless contemplation. Sorry. Take that off. Can you get them, Burn? The 4 limitless. Okay, thank you. No, yeah. So let's do them, very important ones that you do every day. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Sem jendam je dewatang dewe jutang den bajujik, dungal tang jitang drawajujik, dungal mepe dewa tampatang minrawajujik, nearing jaktang nitang drawe tang nong chempo lane pajujik. So we're back again, and even though I always think to myself, I must finish this teaching, just having to teach it to you is making me every single day absolutely understand deeper and deeper and deeper, so that it starts to come into my vision. So I've called today, Buddhist practice can lead to discovering the Pure Land in our hearts. So we are moving through at the moment to a different state of where we were learning last time. But if you missed all the others, I mean, this is actually part 11, believe it or not. But I mean, I'm not putting parts because I don't want to confuse people. But if you've missed some, please do get to go back, and it's all on the YouTube, so you can get it very, very easily. But I think it's really important for us to understand this, because I think this teaching is truly, truly, truly a teaching on where we're going in this life and what we're going to do at the end and how we're going to be at the end. And that's very important. So I'm starting off with 2 quotes from Jigme Rinpoche, and I think they're really beautiful. He says, in his book, Wisdom Nectar, where he's got all these beautiful poetry, and I copy it, and then I go to my book and I read these things over and over again. But one of them was, relax without grasping in the natural state. This naked, present awareness, relax in that state. When delusions, dualistic perceptions, when you stop I and me and you and me and good and bad, when delusions, dualistic perceptions are exhausted, you reach the royal city of naturally liberated Dharmakaya. It's a very beautiful poem, that it really, really is. And the next one, the whole poem is about trying to hope to gaze at the truth. And we've been talking about trying to get a pure perception from our impure, illusory, karmic perception. We're trying to get full, pure perception. And so he says, he's talking in the poem about his hope to gaze at the truth. So he says, yet, while he's trying to gaze at the truth, cataracts. I love the fact that he uses cataracts, because if you just think about cataracts in this human world, that we've all got to eventually probably have them out, what are they? Are they the combination of all our not seeing for so long? They got to be removed, and then you go, oh, I can see. What can you see? Dualistic perception again. Let's be honest. He says, yet cataracts of dense stains of dualistic thought, dense stains of dualistic thought, cover, now listen to this, none of you will really know what this is, okay? It's very important. Cover the young water bubble eyes of this wretched child. So he says, the cataracts, full of the dense stains, cover the young water bubble eyes of this wretched child. Now, some of you may say, what's water bubble eyes? Okay, it's a very important, very high teaching, because the water bubble lamp is the lamp that has to go on inside you when you actually see the pure vision. And it goes right through, it goes 2 channels up to your eyes and then out into the ether. So the water bubble eyes are the eyes that are not only looking at your dense stuff, but looking at pure vision, completely pure vision. He says, I have no chance to see this marvel. And then I add, may I have as little chance to see the marvel as you do, because he could see it perfectly. Otherwise, he couldn't write it. He says, I have no chance to see this marvel. Despondent with regret, I call out in lament, lotus born, do you hear me? Now remember, you can all call, lotus born, do you hear me? Call it, scream it in your room. Scream, do you hear me? He says, if you hear me, lotus born, take your golden scalpel of wisdom and compassion and remove the shell of my thick veil of my ignorance. And then it goes on. Okay, very interesting. Shout. You must all shout to Guru Rinpoche. You must shout to him and say, lotus born, Guru Rinpoche. I go like this when I'm doing some of my things of clearing the obstacles. I go, Guru Rinpoche, just clear the obstacles once and for all. I'm shouting, I'm yelling, I'm calling, just clear them. You must ask, because when you ask with that passion, that's when it all gets cleared for you. It's very important that you do that. But I thought I'd start with those 2 quotes, because they're so amazing. That whole book is enough. I must do one whole teaching on it, because it's absolutely exquisite. But I keep coming across such wonderful thing, and then it takes the copper-colored mountain longer for me to finish. But I don't know if some of you or any of you sometimes wonder if you do look at the news. Some people never look at the news, and that's probably the best. But if you look at the news, you actually wonder, what are we doing here in this body, in this life? What are we here for? Are we here to serve this family, get money? What are we here for in actual fact? Someone from the Tuesday night group texted me and said the following to me. It gave me a bit of a shock, I must say. She said, you know what, Melanie? I thought I would look at one of your Monday morning groups on video. She said, so I looked at your Monday morning group. She said, I didn't understand much, so I'll stick to Tuesdays. Okay. And that made me really a little bit frightened, because I hope that I'm bringing this in a palatable form. It's very difficult to understand. That's why I don't just go through the teachings. When I hear some of these high masters, they just zoom through the teaching. There are no stories. There's no Cinderella teaching. There's nothing like that. You just get the teaching. And you either sit there for 3 hours and listen with absolute dedication, or you just don't do it. But the point is, I always try to make it palatable. So I wondered why she didn't understand it. And I try and do it on 3 different levels: the outer, the inner, and the secret. I love the secret teaching. I love it. But if you don't stop me when I'm doing it and say, just stop, please, tell me this, tell me that, it's your group. You must shout at me. You must ask me. You must interrupt me. You must get it, because all of you are really dedicated and devoted. And I want you to get this, because it'll make such a difference to you for the end of this life, and for going into the bardos after life. It'll make such a difference. Okay. But just saying this to show you how Mipam Rinpoche felt about his life in a physical body. This is what he said. He said, what's his name? Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, who was writing the biography, the Namta on Mipam, said, from his earliest years, Mipam would reflect that if he were to squander a single day in meaningless activity, the little that had entered his understanding would be lost. Now think about that. He wouldn't squander one day. And you know, it's quite interesting because sometimes when I have one of those days, or in Australia when I was there, when it's just busy with family and all kinds of things, I always do my practice. It's non-compromising in the morning. But sometimes when I really have a very busy day, not in service, but with material, with samsaric things, at the end of the day, I go to bed and I feel so awful. So I can understand what he's saying, even if I'm doing things, if I've gone for a futile lunch or a futile dinner, and people, even if people have spoken about politics or what's happening in the world, I'm okay. But when people just talk about rubbish and material, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm wasting time. And that's what Mipam felt. And he said, this weighed heavily on his mind, and it was constantly in his thoughts that if only he were to meet a learned master, he would give himself utterly to study and reflection. And he did. Whichever of the masters he met just looked at him and bestowed upon him empowerments and everything else. Now, we haven't got, you know, there are occasionally some of these profound masters that are walking around, but they're not exactly available in the next door house to us. Okay, we haven't exactly got them next door to come and say, don't do this, do this. But we have access, and especially through technology, to amazing translated literature, amazing direct teaching of many masters on YouTube, and lots of different practices and techniques that we've learned from our teachers. Ponder this. We have this. You know, sometimes when I listen to Zongsa Khyentse teaching in Paris, teaching in Australia, teaching all over the place, I think to myself, my God, when I hear some of those questions from the people, it's amazing that they know so much, that they can dare to stand up in front of a master, challenge him, ask him questions and things like that. You must stand up, you must ask. And if you keep telling Guru Rinpoche, you'll get it, how blessed and privileged we are to have this. And then I'm trying to fathom it all out so that I'm fathoming it all out inside. But when I've got to put it into palatable stuff to give it to you, I know that I have to use some concrete examples, because what are we fathoming? We are fathoming what is the true meaning of the copper-colored mountain, of the near Manakaya Pure Land, of Zangdor Taldri, of Guru Rinpoche's Pure Land. What is the real meaning of it? And I'm always available to answer any questions that might come to your heads. I'm so happy to answer. You know, last night, somebody called me and said, didn't call me, left a message and said, I'm so anxious. I'm feeling so terrible and I've got this terrible week, and can you help me? I just sat down for 2 minutes. I just recorded a meditation for him to do. That's what I did. And I just sent it. That was my answer. I didn't say, shame, poor you. I said, do this meditation. You know how to do it. And I did it, of losing the solidity of the anxiety and allowing it to come up, and allowing yourself to go back into your nature, into your true nature. That is what we are learning, really. And that's my absolute joy, even if it's the blind leading the blind. I mean, I wish you all deserve to have a wonderful master teaching you, but never mind. I'm here, and it is the blind leading the blind, and I'm really grateful to do it in every conceivable way. And your responsibility is to try and use it in your daily life. And if you're just coming and being here for the hour and a half that we do it, that's not okay, okay? Even if I'm pathetic compared to the great teachers, but together we can work it out, okay? And look at Mipam and what he left for us. Look what Jigme Lingpa left for us. Sometimes I'm astounded I come across him everywhere in all the literature. And he was this Jigme Lingpa that we're doing is aspirational prayer. He was this being that Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Tsogyo looked at in his retreat and said, right, we're giving him this, we're giving him the long Chig Ning Tik, we're giving him all of this. He will sort it out and do it. We've got to be there as an available instrument, and don't ever underestimate any of yourselves, because you're making a mistake, because you have that pure body, okay? And it's really important. Look at what Dilgo Khyentse left for us. Look what Dajjom Lingpa left for us. It's quite amazing when I really look at it. And I took this beautiful, quick story, and then we're going to go and we're going to really just revise what we've done and go on to the new thing, because it's very important. Now, what happened to Mipam was this, okay? He was able to reveal the manner of his previous births. He knew all his previous lifetimes. Can you imagine? And he became, at the time, it makes me so sad that, that China is no longer allowing the Buddhism freely, because in those days, you know, they went back and forth from China, and he became the principal spiritual preceptor of China. In order to put him to the test, the Chinese enclosed him in a box. Can you imagine? In a box inside a stupa, which they kept sealed for 1 year, with no one being allowed to open this box. Okay, no food, no air, nothing. When after 12 months they looked inside, they found the master exactly as he was when they left him. He told them that it seemed to him that no more than an instant had passed. The Chinese emperor and all his court immediately had faith in the yogi and showered him with honors. And then he did all the work for them. And I was thinking, Mipam, can't you just go to Sri Shrimping and just give him a bash over the head and show him the truth, instead of all the countries he wants to invade and what he's done to the Tibetans and everything? I mean, he's taken away everything. He's taken the children out of their context into boarding schools. And then the children are taught Chinese. He's trying to pull their language of Tibetan away from them, teach them Chinese. I get all these letters every day from Tibet. Teach them in Chinese and take away their Buddhism. My God, what will the karma be of all of this? I can't even think to think. But how do we begin to experience, to fathom how to experience the copper-colored mountain? Okay, so we look at it. It's divided into sections of verses. So the first 6 verses, and you can go right back to my original lectures, okay, the first 6 verses are the outer topography of Zangdok Paldri. So it is a description. You can write this down, because then you know when you do the prayer, you know what you're actually doing when you say it every day. And I have committed myself to say this prayer every single day as part of my practice. And each day that I say it, I begin to understand more and more about each verse. So the first verse 1 to 6 is the outer topography, but each outer feature, now this is what you've got to really understand, each outer feature has a deep spiritual meaning. The whole psychophysical body that we have, if we look superficially, it's just this decrepit, aging body that I see in the mirror, okay, with aging, illness, many components. Now just ponder for a moment. Every single feature of this body, of what's inside and outside of this body, has a pure, true counterpart in our pure light Vajra bodies, or what they call the subtle body of light, the subtle body. We've all got that. So as soon as the physical body decrepitly deteriorates at death, we are in that body of light. But if we don't know what that body of light is, we will just faint. We will not be able to recognize it. Now, all of you know this, that when that physical body dies, we've got a pure light, a light body, a Vajra body, pure light at the point of death. And what happens is everything that is inside us becomes something different, something released, something beautiful. So, for example, we have something in our ordinary consciousness called the alaya consciousness. I'm going to teach that on Tuesday, so I'm not going to waste much time. You can catch it up. But the alaya is the pure, it's not pure, it's just absolutely, it hasn't got awareness, it's just energy into which the imprints go. The alaya consciousness imprints the karmic imprints into the alaya. So the alaya is like this state, this absolutely pure, not pure, it's just a non-aligned state that is absolutely no awareness, no anything. And then the alaya consciousness is what we imprint onto that. Now, a lot of people who do shamatha, they do it incorrectly because they might be going into the alaya consciousness. That's not the pure light. It's not, because the pure Dharmakaya has the awareness, whereas the alaya doesn't have awareness. So what happens is the alaya is really the Dharmakaya, really the nature of mind. So when the alaya consciousness, the consciousness goes with you, but when all of that dies, you're left with the pure Dharmakaya. The ordinary consciousness, which is the 8 levels of consciousness, which I'll also teach tomorrow night, is the primordial consciousness. It already is the primordial consciousness. As soon as the ordinary consciousness goes, there's a primordial consciousness. And sentient beings, which are us, are really Buddhas, awakened beings. So we become awakened. If we can't see it, we don't get it. We got to go for another time around the wheel and another time with all the karmic imprints. And if we look in the palace, at the 4 sides of the palace, all of the 4 sides are made of jewels and different colors, the 4 sides of the palace. And what is that? Those are the 4 out of the 5 wisdom aspects of our nature, of our primordial consciousnness. We've already got it. And the 5th one's in the center. We've got that. So then we've got all those 4 also, they also represent the enlightened activities. So instead of our mundane rubbish activities, we could be doing enlightened activities. We won't talk about that now, but that's what I'm saying. So when you see this outer palace, every feature on that outer palace is very important so that you can become the body of light. So in those first verses, he's leading us to understand that the outer topography of this copper-colored mountain, Zangdo Paldri, this near Manakaya pure land of Buddha, of Guru Rinpoche, is not just a description. It's us. So first we learn the outer. I'm going to stop in 5 minutes, okay? And then I'm going to throw it out to you. Then, within verses 7 to 14, and you can count them when you're doing the verses 70 to 14 starts to show you not just the outer, but the inside of the palace. So it shows you the 3 levels of the palace, the 3-tiered structure of the palace, representing in us the Dharmakaya at the top, the Sambhogakaya, which is the pure illusory vision, and the Nirmanakaya, which is the compassion that goes out in our world to do the teaching. Of course we have those in us, but at the moment we have ordinary body, ordinary speech, and ordinary mind. So when you shout to Guru Rinpoche, I'm sick and tired of my ordinary body, speech, and mind. Show me who I really am. You'll get it. You'll have things, because I can see like people like Marion Mimi, she's starting to say, oh, she even texts me something. Is this wisdom? Oh, I was looking at all these negative emotions, and then suddenly I saw which wisdom they were. Start recognizing, re-knowing all of these things in your life. And Karen, I know you live in your own world with all of these things there. And now you've got to actually put it into words, which you're really starting to do so you can enlighten other people. And I know you often do that. You understand all of this. But also the three-tiered palace represents three dimensions of our awakened experience. And it doesn't matter which one you go to, as long as you're starting to see that you are awakened, okay? And it also represents three different levels of how we can practice: the outer level, the inner level, and the secret level. Up to you. As I told you last week when we were looking at refuge, you can take outer refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha, you can take inner refuge in the Yidam Dakini, in the Guru Yidam and Dakini, or you can take ultimate refuge in the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, if that's what you're ready to do, to hop over when you've had enough of the samsara and you really want to hop over. So these verses also give you, like they say in the palace, there's this precious 8-petaled lotus. And the 8-petaled lotus is the coded language for the center of the subtle body, the heart chakra, in your light body. It's there. It's the coded language. And everything external has a meaning, even your offerings. You can go like I've got here, all my outer offerings, but then there are the inner offerings, which are starting to be the blood and those kind of things that you're offering from inside. And then the secret offering, those are when you're really offering the bindus, the secret way of offering. So when you're offering, you're saying something like, I offer my entire being. I offer the mandala of my heart. You're going right into the secret offering. So you can go back if you want, if you're really keen on this, to learn all those 7 to 14 verses. Then last week, we started with verse 15 to 19. Now here we are going to the secret stuff called esoteric meditations. Esoteric means very secret. It's not exoteric anymore. It's esoteric. And here, Jigme Lingpa mentions Bodhisattva's training. And he starts in these things to say, here are the 10 boobies, the 10 stages. In some of the teaching, they even give you 13 stages. All the different boomies that you go through. When I was doing Mahamudra, that's what we had to look at, the different stages that we go through. And the 5 paths, we'll deal with it at verse 17 or 18. The 5 paths are that path that some of you did with the Mahamudra, the path of accumulation, the path of joining, the path of seeing, when we're now going to first Bodhisattva level, okay? And then we're going up and up and up until we've got that light body. That's the outer path. But then you've got the inner path. Now, believe it or not, and that's what we're going to look at today. The Vajrayana practice of creation or generation and completion is actually the secret learning, when you start the inner learning, when you really understand it. Now today, as we were doing Chenrezi, I was looking at the English, and I really suggest you do that, because what it says when you finish doing it is it says, now All beings are these beautiful beings in Devachan. All sound, even your barking, Jack, that you're going, I think there's a rat in the garden that is going mad. Okay. All your barking are the sounds of mantras. If you listen carefully, sometimes when I'm doing my practice and an aeroplane comes over, then I'm hearing in the noise of the aeroplane, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. I'm hearing that, you know. All the sounds are the mantras, and all thoughts are without all these hassles, these negative emotions, these things. They're just pure thoughts that come and go, part of what comes out. So the secret path is the ultimate physical transformation into a body of light. So that's what Mipam did. Mipam wasn't in an ordinary body. He was in a body of light. What would happen if we got locked up in a box in a stupa for a year? I mean, we'd come back and they'd find a shriveled little corpse there for only one reason. Because we believe that we've got this aging body. We really believe it. This is who it is. I've got to have food. I've got to have this. I've got to have light. I've got to have air. Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. If you've got a body of light, you just go, you actually don't even go birthing through a mother, and we're going to come on to that in a minute. So the three paths here in these verses is the regimes of meditative instruction. Which do you want, the outer, inner, or secret? The three bodies of awakening, and the three tiers of the palace of Zangdok Paldri, of the copper-colored mountain, 3 levels. So first, we start purifying the form by contemplating. Well, what is this external mandala of the palace of lotus light? Okay, what is it? What does he mean that there's a mandala of the palace of light? I say to myself every day, I belong in Guru Rinpoche's mandala with all his beings, with all the beings, with everything. I keep thinking and pondering about the mandala of Guru Rinpoche, okay? And once the meditation progresses, we begin to discern the internal dimension of the lotus light palace, the internal, that heart where it's registered. And then eventually the interior space of the palace is, not becomes, not was, not something out in, is the mandala of the subtle light body. You are the palace. And in the palace are 100 qualities. They say 100 peaceful and wrathful deities. Those are the 100 qualities that we have when we get enlightened. It is so exciting. It is so beautiful. And don't give up. I'm really happy if you just look at the external space of the palace. That is fine. But for those of you that really want to complete this life and not have to come back on the wheel of life in the same body and the same stuff, you better understand that this is the most wonderful teaching to do that. Now I'm throwing it open before we meditate, then we're going on to verse whatever. And I didn't invite you, Sunshine, anyway. So you decided to come irrespective. I said, don't come today, but you did. Okay. Anyone want to ask? Anyone want to comment? Anyone want to say anything? Please do. I've given you a lot because that's the overall stuff of this whole Lotus Light Palace. It's a summary of what we are learning. Right, Bern, I can see that you really are understanding that. What have you got to say?
I'm going through a very difficult time in my life at the moment.
Yeah.
And thank God I've got these, because there's something in me that's radically changing now.
Wonderful.
And it's almost like every time I do the prayer, there's something that I hadn't seen before or understood before, and it is starting to really resonate. I'm using it quite a lot. It's actually a lovely prayer.
Brilliant, 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 because that is what we're doing. Okay, I'm trying now. That's why I went back over everything, because if I just go on to the next verse, then you go, okay, but what's she talking about? It's something different. I'm trying to give you an overall picture of everything. Very good. And you know what that is? Because the harder your life circumstances, and I know you've been through some pretty steep circumstances in your life, okay? The harder the circumstances, the more beneficial are the teachings and everything that will come to you. Do you understand? So that the people who are really needing to change, they're getting the worst bumps on the head. I've got 4 of you that in the morning when I go to the Medicine Buddha, I say, Medicine Buddha, please, these 4. Okay. I said, they're all children of the light. And I am telling you that I'm putting them there, and they really need to be healed and see that none of this stuff is anything worth even pondering about. Rather ponder the truth and say, the harder the lesson, the more beneficial. And it's true. It really is true. Gailsy, darling, whenever I think of this group, I just can see your absolute concentrated face. I'm so proud of you that you can actually do that. It's so wonderful that you're listening, and I can see it's really going in. I just want you to do it, because all of us are not getting younger anymore. So the thing is, we have to be ready for this. Jade, you've still got a number of years, so you can go a bit slower. You're still young. But the thing is, a few of you have got a couple of years. But, a lot of us are already, we're going in the firing line, We've got to really get this, because there isn't enough time not to, really. And Karen, do you want to say anything? It's really interesting, because I want you to all ponder this. I don't want to just rush through this. I don't care how long we take, because each talk is very different to the others, and it just adds on. Even if you came in for one, it would be okay, because you'd get, now I've given you a whole an overall thing of what it's all about. Anyone else want to ask David, any of you, Molly, Mimi?
Hi.
Hi, David.
Yeah, I regard these teachings right now as a life raft that is a better life raft than any other I can identify. But this particular expression of the triple jewel is so allegorical, so abstract, such a foreign language, that at times I get frustrated at just how it's all Greek. And when I travel in countries which aren't English speaking, maybe I understand one word in 10. And after spending some time there, I'm just assimilating the sounds and the vibrations of the space to understand it better, which is kind of where I'm at with this right now. It's just, if it's so important and it's so time critical, it would be helpful if the teachings were just not so abstract and were more specifically culturally adapted to the way we in the West compute the data. And reading Rainbow Painting and being Guru Rinpoche and books like that, there's very specific instruction to withdraw from samsara and retreat to a cave, literally, to be able to uninterruptedly focus on these teachings. And I get what you're saying, that it would take that amount of gargantuan effort, actually, for me to be able to decode everything you're talking about and not just hear it without actually understanding it in a way which makes a material difference.
Okay, but let me say a couple of things on what you've just said. That I agree with you. Sometimes the cultural things are really, really difficult to absorb. And how do we know? Whoever taught us as children about the Sambhogakaya, the Niyamanakaya, and the Dharmakaya? I mean, whoever taught us about that? I never got that in Judaism, I can assure you, you know. But you know what's so interesting is that no, as Zongsa himself says, the majority of us are not going to be able to go in a cave, in a mountain. We are not going to be able to do that, okay, in this lifetime and just leave our responsibilities, mainly because we've got so much karma, you know. But what I think is so vital is the fact that slowly you take a sentence or two out of the teaching, just even thinking about why is it called the copper-colored mountain? I mean, I got the clue when Ekong Rinpoche I told you this, said to Krudamet, what's his name? Kredamutwa, when he said to him, is there an orange mountain in Africa? And Kredamutwa said, yes, there is one. There's an orange-colored mountain. He said, oh, good. Because what he was looking at was not just the copper-colored mountain, you know, in the Himalayas or wherever it actually is. It's like supposed to be near Pakistan or something like that. Not that, but the mountain that is in every external place if you just shut your eyes. I mean, if you come to a sunset, you'll see the copper-colored mountain because it goes absolutely orange. And if you look, wherever you look, you'll actually see the copper-colored mountain. And then when you learn about it, when you learn to be in touch with the mandala of Guru Rinpoche, you start to realize, oh my goodness, this is not external, this is me. When you die, you are actually a mandala of the copper-colored mountain. You are a mandala of Devachen. You are a mandala of any Pure Land that there is. And a Pure Land's not a place. It's right inside your heart. So you begin to understand this. Now, what I'm doing, what I'm training my mind, it's very, very interesting because I ponder this for hours, David. I don't just read it, and then I'm giving it to you, regurgitating. I really, really look at it inside me. And what started to happen is that I'm starting to see that external mountain made of awareness. And for a long time, it was up in my inner visions, it was up there. Now it's starting to come down to the middle. And last night, for the first time, I saw things going on inside it. I'm seeing things going into this mountain, going into this place, and I'm watching all the activity in this. Then I'm thinking, but what I'm seeing are my own visions of my own light body. And so will you, but it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of time and a lot of lifetimes. Remember that, okay?
Yeah. So is it true then that if one is just having the correct view and the view of primordial purity and empty cognizance and realizing the emptiness of phenomena, including our own not being a separate self and our own mind not being able to be found in a location, that then over time the practice and the result follows the view?
Totally. If you understand the basis that out of the essence comes the luminous phenomena, the pure elements out of the essence. And then what happens is they serve whatever they're doing, and then they go back into the essence again. When you can understand this, then the grip on your negative emotions.
Well, that's the thing. It helps me on a day-to-day basis now in terms of thoughts which aren't useful, emotions which aren't useful. They just go back into the void, and I'm able to blue sky meets blue sky. So that's the practical benefit I get in the immediate context. But all the allegories and metaphors and stories which are cross-cultural, I don't feel that sweating to understand the detail of that's going to be beneficial to me in the now.
No, it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to do is, I had intended giving you 2 more sessions, just finishing off what Jigme Lingpa, was teaching in his prayer. And then I thought, but this is your lives. This is our purpose of what we're doing. Doesn't matter whether you want to go to Devachen or you want to go to the copper-colored mountain. I think the difference in going to a near Manakaya land and a Sambhogakaya land inside you is simply that if you go to a near Manakaya land, then you've got to understand that it is to give service. Okay, Guru Rinpoche in his mandala is to help enlighten all sentient beings right through, not this planet, right through all the universes, thousands of universes. So for me, there's no wasting time. My teaching has got to be the gift that I have and the gift that I start doing straight away when this physical body is gone. It must be like that. You've got to find something that is really true to your being. And you've got to hold that right through till you come to the end of your life. And then you just strip this off, and there you are. So whichever way you do it, your whole thing, David, is that you have got to strip yourself of intellect. Okay? And that is the most difficult thing of all, because you understand everything from an intellectual point of view, but you've got to that all down, and then you've got to be free. When you went to Bodh Gaya now, and you met with Dzongkar Khyentse, and I mean, everybody was just attracted to you straight away in what you were doing. You have to know that's merit. That is merit that you've got. Now you have to come home, you have to put it into practice, you have to understand it, you have to share it with people, you've got to put it into a digestible content for people around you. Shame of people being bumped off, but there isn't load shedding today, so I don't know what's going on. Do you know what I'm saying? And you are getting it, and you'll just go a little further consistently, and you'll absolutely get it. You really will. Any other questions? Any other comment? I don't care if we spent the whole session doing that, because it's really important to me that you understand. Does what I've done today help you get a better idea of what the prayer is about? Does it, Bet? Okay, good. Because if you can understand that, then you understand. First, you do the externals. You clean up your life. You clean up your obscurations. That's why, to get to this real teaching, you have to do the Nondra practice, because the Nondra, or something very similar to it. So I was listening to Chamtrul Rinpoche, and he says you have to do 500,000 of each of the Nondra. Okay, 500,000. That's 5 times what we are doing. Okay. Well, I know Tulku Oyujan also said do 400,000, but to me, I know people are not going to do that. I committed myself to doing it once, and now I'm doing it slow, which was 110,000, slowly, but it doesn't matter. You could have you could do one prostration, And just learn that what you're doing is you're paying tribute to your own awakened nature. And that is vital. When you're doing Vajrasattva, you know, what I'm doing now when I do Vajrasattva, I always do it every day. There's no doubt about it, because Vajrasattva is one of the wisdom deities, and that pure water calls over me. And when I do it, all the people that I know are going through suffering at the moment, that are reaching out to me, I just put them in my mandala and I put the Vajrasattva over them. And with everything, the mandala offering, what is it really about? The mandala offering is about taking that beautiful heart of your heart chakra, of your lotus, of your light body, and just offering it. You want to offer it externally, by all means. You want to offer it internally, by all means. You want to offer it secretly. You go to that mandala and you say, I'm offering this. And by offering this, I'm giving everything that I've got. And I'm really willing to do whatever work comes to me. And then the Guru Yoga. The Guru Yoga is the most important. And you can go back, there's a recording of it. But the Guru Yoga is when you are purifying your three external bodies, your body, your speech, and your mind and your heart. When you are purifying those three, you are then ready to do whatever you have to do. And then the last empowerment on the Guru Yoga is all three together. Okay? And when you get that, I would never come and teach here without doing all of that in the morning first. That's why I'm always rushing. Because, you know, I would never not do that. Because when I come here, I know that I've got to be a worthy instrument. I've got to take what I'm learning and put it out to all of you. It's very important. Do you all understand? Shall we just do a little meditation and then just start with the next verse, and then we will go on with the verses. I've got to actually put this aircon thing on, which won't make a noise because it is so hot now. It promises never to be hot, but it is. I can't help it. Where is that? Just hang on. So everybody, get into your meditative posture. It's better. It's not supposed to be hot today, but I was warned. It's always hot. Get into your meditative posture. I want you to really check that spinal column, that it's straight. Because remember, running on either side, we have lots of channels, but the main channels are on the left side of the female are those negative emotions. They run there. On the right side of females, opposite for males, on the right side of the males is that one of the wisdom channels, not the complete wisdom, but it's a better channel. So when you sleep, it's better to lie on your left side if you're a female and on your right side if you're a male, because you're trying to block, you're trying to stop those negative emotions from showing up in your dreams and everything. So you want to bring all the energy into your central channel and the winds into your central channel. You want to bring it all together, okay? And you're breathing in and out, and in and out. And as we said last week, looking at Mipam Rinpoche, what we were doing is his absolute perfection of eliminating and realizing. So what are we eliminating? Everything, the rubbish that we are holding on to in our lives, the nonsense, the things that are really, really, really not going well, the negativity, the angers, all these sort of things. We just, as we're breathing in, we're seeing them like waves on the ocean. They rise up, we let them be, we don't hold them, we don't go back to them. We let them be, and we let them dissolve into emptiness. None of them are tangible. None of them are true. None of them are you. They're just meandering thoughts and feelings that we have all day. Just let them be. And when we can let them be, the light body is already there. The Dharmakaya is that pure essence, total essence, with full awareness. The Sambhogakaya is when the nature starts expressing itself in pure form, beautiful colors, because all the elements are free in beautiful colors. And the Nirmanakaya that the Buddha used so that he could be here for everyone in the light, in the pureness, so that he could be in a pure realm, even when there is impurity that we can see, in a pure realm, beautiful, pure, and really, really going back to what the Buddha said when Shariputra asked him, but if you are here and this is a pure land, then how come we can't see it? And the Buddha said, Shariputra, it is not the Tathagata's fault. If you can't see it, it is not the Buddha's fault. This land is pure land because I am in it. But if you can't see it, you need to train your mind. You need to clear all the veils. You need to eliminate all the misconceptions. And you need to come to the pure light. And then, eventually, the interior space of the palace, which is in your light body, is the mandala, is your mandala of the absolute purity. Now, when you are in that mandala, nothing negative can touch you. You are pure, you are whole. There is light and there is awareness. There's no bias, there's no misconceptions, there's no preference. Your perception is without preference. Whatever's happening is absolutely right for you. So let it be, let it happen, and be grateful at the veils, the cataracts falling off your eyes. And you will soon see with the water bubble eyes into the light. Let go of all the struggles. You're surrendering to your own true nature. And every time you're going through hard times, just take a break from whatever you're doing. Sit for 1 minute or stand for 1 minute. Just do the meditation with awareness. I'm trying to make it spin.
Keep it on. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, let's just go on a little bit to the next thing, unless anybody wants to say anything. I'm very happy to listen to all of you. We were doing verse 15 last time, which was about, we were doing verse 15. Let's read verse 15 and verse 16, Bern, aloud. Okay. The Pure Land as self-vision. Visualize clearly the arrangement of the Pure Land and aspire with inner awareness toward the external form of the glorious copper-colored mountain, so that it manifests in our bodies in this world of endurance, the world of endurance. That's what we're in, the world of endurance. Isn't that sad? We should be in a pure land, but we're in a world of endurance. And only when we lift ourselves out of it can we get out of it. But may the glorious copper-colored mountain manifest in our self-vision. That's what you're asking. Okay, so what we did was, briefly, you can go back to last week's session. What appears, don't take it off yet, Bern, what appears in the cosmos is reflected in each individual. And whatever appears in the experience of every being is projected macrocosmically onto the fabric of the universe. Now, it's such an interesting thing, because if you look at the wars, if you look at the dictators, if you look at the real almost fascist leaders that are existing on our planet right now, right the way through, it's so sad because it's a reflection of what we've got, our confusion, that we give over to beings like this. I was terribly upset to hear that Alexei Navalny died on the weekend. I was very, very, very upset, because for me, he was the hope of Russia. But then I thought, well, I can't see the whole picture. He's at least free from what he's had to go through. But maybe his death will eventually have some kind of impact on the people of Russia, because truly he really was an amazing, courageous being. And it's very sad that he was killed at the age of 47 and not really having a chance to do what he came to do. For me, is a very, very sad day. Okay? But we are in this world of endurance, and we have got to take ourselves out. And the birth, the growing, the dead, that's what we're doing. It's all got absolute correlated stuff. So it all becomes different when we come to the world, when we come to the pure worlds of the pure lands. So let's read 16 and just do a little bit of that. We've still got a bit of time. Read it together. By virtue of the profound interdependence of the generation and perfection stages, as soon as the 3 channels, I just spoke about them in the meditation, have been disentangled by the knots at the 5 chakras, the vast palace of the glorious copper-colored mountain manifests at the center of the heart. May we perfect the effortless display of wisdom's play, that's it coming out of the essence, and meet face to face with Lord Padmakara, who's Guru Rinpoche, which is not an external thing. It's our own self-knowing awareness. Thanks, Bern. You can take it off now. Okay. Now, when we come to understand that verse, it's so fascinating because those who are eligible for Vajrayana practice, so in other words, if you are eligible for Vajrayana practice, if you are eligible for it, which all of you are, otherwise you wouldn't be able to do it. When you are eligible for it, you need to have developed the ethical and mental discipline required for engaging in these advanced type of meditation. The generation and perfection stages in their many aspects, and they have many aspects. So let's look at them. Why do we do the generation stage? That is, I mean, as David just pointed out, it sounds crazy for me to visualize myself as Tara, for me to visualize myself as Chenrezi, for me to visualize myself as Guru Rinpoche. What are you talking about? I don't know what that is all about. Do you know that when you do it, what you are trying to do when you visualize yourself is you're not playing a game that you don't know what you're playing. You are cleansing your habitual tendencies associated with the 4 types of birth, which I'll talk about in a moment, by meditating on the ordinary appearances. So suddenly look at each other, you all seeing each other and say, hey, that's amazing. You're all deities. Amazing. Here we are each Monday morning and you're all the deities. By hearing ordinary sounds as mantras and by thoughts, all the thoughts we have are just the displays of the wisdom. Okay? You train to overcome the strong fixation on ordinary forms. And then it's the end of clinging to phenomenal appearances as absolutely inherently real. At that moment, you realize that everything is then recognized as the pure display of the radiant mind. So, you know, every time I look in the mirror when I'm getting dressed and I think, oh my God, look at you, look how you look. I just stop. And I try and see myself from another perspective. Maybe as Tara, maybe as Guru Rinpoche, maybe as Chenrezi. You're starting to change and you're starting to say it's unbelievable because the generation stage is linked to the process of birth. And the perfection stage, when you dissolve it, you start in the dissolution and you end in the dissolution. So you start in the essence and then you create yourself as the deity and then you use the mantra as your energy and then you dissolve into the essence. If you just think about that, it is so amazing because what are the 4 types of birth? There's womb birth, which all of us know about. We know about womb birth. There's the birth of heat and moisture. You know, when you put a bean, when we were at school, you put a bean in the wet cotton wool and you moistened it, and then eventually it starts growing, and it's so exciting when you see it grows into a big bean plant. So heat and moisture for certain things. And then the third one is, what are the 4 things? Heat and moisture. Sorry, I know the 4th one is when you're born into a realm. I'll tell you now what it is. I just can't think of this. I've got too many things that I'm thinking of. Just let me see where it is. It's birth. Just a moment. I'll get to it now. 4 kinds. I don't know why I'm not thinking carefully. Okay, the four kinds are from a womb, from an egg. Sorry, from an egg is the second one. When you're born from an egg, like chickens hatch out from an egg, the spontaneous generation from warmth and moisture, and the miraculous birth of God's bodhisattva emanations and beings in the intermediate stage between death and rebirth, including the hell realms. So that's the fourth type of birth that we are trying to purify. We're trying to purify those four kinds of birth. Now, just figure it out, David. Think of this very, very carefully. That how would you think to actually change your perception of all beings? How would you change? By doing this on a regular basis. It says at the end of Chenrezi, what we did in the practice, it says, you see all beings as deities, all sounds as mantra. Doesn't mean, like I said, when a plane's coming, you're thinking, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. But the sound is pure energy. So when you're screaming at somebody, it's not pure energy sound. But when you're going Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, or whatever else you're doing, it's pure energy. That's what you're learning to do, to cleanse everything. It's so amazing. And he says, they're different perfection stage. They're different perfection when you dissolve in. Like certain skills, like the two-more practice. What the two-more practice is, it brings all of the energy into the central channel. And then from the navel, you shoot from the crown chakra, you shoot down that heat and fire, and it comes up purifying all the energy. And that's why you feel heat. So those yogis, when they come out of retreat, they don't have to have even clothes in the snow because they've already got the inner heat. Okay, but he says there that when we disentangle the knots, and there are other ways of disentangling, but when you disentangle, those are all the chakras along your channels, then we allow the impure karmic winds to become wisdom winds that penetrate the central channel and abide therein. Now think about that. If your winds penetrate the central channel, you no longer see dualistically. You no longer see that this is bad and this is good. You no longer see. You see things as they actually are. Now, when the masters look at us, they don't see Melanie's got a big mouth. Melanie's come out of this life. He's got these amount of children, these amount of... They don't see that. They're looking at your true nature. Now, when I asked Tai Situ to give me the empowerments for things I didn't really understand, he was looking at me for a long time. And I thought to myself, what does he see? Is he seeing my limitations? No, he's seeing my absolute spiritual part of me, what it's ready for, what I'm ready for. So when you look at this, the inner tantras of the Nyingma school emphasize the union of these two stages. So the generation and the completion, or the creation and the completion, they put it together. But in other traditions, you have the generation going into the completion. But in the Nyingma lineage, you actually have the essence, and then you have the arising of the deity, and then you have the dissolving. They go together. They are together. The more you do Vajrayana practice, the more you can see it. And Jigme Lingpa is saying the profound interdependence of those two stages, practiced correctly, he says the entanglements of the three channels are unraveled, and the wisdom of seeing things in their abiding nature become self-apparent. So when we're sitting really with all the energy in, we can see the real wisdoms. It's like when Marion said to me, so when I've got anger, when I've seen someone angry, is it true that that anger is really mirror-like wisdom? Yes, it's true. When you're not sure of the relative and the ultimate, and you think, well, I better use my discriminating wisdom. The wisdoms are the real. The perversions are what we do as human beings. So we're trying to transform that through these practices. And David, the practices are a way of doing it. Because after I had done Tara for a long time, I just know it's just so strange what happened to me. I've told you the story before, but it's interesting. That Tara, you're supposed to see yourself as 16 years old. And one day, I was at the shops and I was running past someone I know, and she went, hello, Melanie. And I said, oh, hello. And then I ran off and she shouted to me, you look like a 16-year-old. And I thought, why did she think I looked like a 16-year-old? Why not a 17-year-old? Why not an 18-year-old? Why not a 70-year-old? She didn't. She said, you remind me of a 16-year-old girl. And I thought, wow, she wasn't into Buddhism or anything. Wow. That's when you start to transform all the rubbish of your physical being, of this incarnation, of this temporary identity. You start to transform it. You become something else, whichever quality appeals to you. I mean, Guru Rinpoche he just manifested wherever he needed to manifest in millions of different forms according to how you met him. You might have met him yesterday. You might have been at the shops and this guy came up and said, oh, madam, could you tell me this? And you didn't recognize that was Guru Rinpoche's manifestation to you in the shops. You just answered impatiently. Maybe you should have looked very, very carefully at him. And maybe you should have seen that the world starts changing into deities, into different forms, into pure forms. And then you see the pure lands that are already inside you. So he says with the path of liberation, all phenomena are by their very nature spontaneously liberated and perfectly awakened. And Tulku Urchin Rinpoche, you know that I love, says, the empty quality of that which visualizes is and always was Dharmakaya. He says the sphere of great primordial wisdom that Jigme Lingpa refers to is the intrinsic nature of mind, without form or attributes. The interdependence of the generation and perfection stages refers to the inseparability, the nature of the ground and what comes out of the ground and goes back into the ground. If the ground is pure, then what comes out of it is absolutely pure. And when you understand it, Jigme Lingpa says, oh, hang on, the location of Zangdor Paldri is in the chakra, located around the heart, where the very subtle mind and its accompanying wings are to be found. He says you can visualize it in the form of an indestructible drop. I've seen that indestructible drop. I've seen it. For me, it's got this blue, beautiful, vivid color in the middle. And it's the size of a mustard seed. And here he says, Zangdor Paldri, or the copper-colored mountain, is the true nature of mind. The place where the karmic winds just transform into wisdom, luminous wisdom, Okay. Every day in my practice, I go this sentence: may illumination dawn as wisdom. May the illumination dawn as wisdom. May I know what it is. May I really understand it. May I know what it is, okay? And this is also the place where the 5 peaceful Buddha families and the 5 activities arise. It's revealed to as indivisible from your psychophysical body, your whole continuum. All pure realms are just the appearance of interdependent arising of the Vajra body's channels, circulating energy and vital essence, and the mind's nature free of dualistic clinging, and the pure realms are all there. So Longchenpa just says, in his commentary to the Gya-Garbha Tantra, he says, when self-appearances become the pure land of the 5 families in the outer and inner channels and chakras, all mandalas of each individual deity without exception are complete as ornaments of wisdom awareness. So if you are Chenrezi, you have the mandala of the 2nd level of the copper-colored mountain, and you're just compassionate. Even for the evil people, you feel compassion all the time. You may be wrathful, you may do it as wrathful. But I'll come back to just know the last sentence. It says, then you meet Lord Padmakara, who's our own self-knowing awareness, face to face. It's in you. It's not something you're looking outside. Do you understand, Linda? It's so beautiful because you and Molly are really dedicated, and you'll get it. You'll get it quicker than if you analyze everything. If you just know that everything is actually wisdom, but we can't see it. So in the beginning, we've got to train to try and say, what is this in front of me? What is this negative situation giving me? What am I learning from this awful person that is in front of me? What's the wisdom? How am I learning it? And then you get it, and there you are. You are the mandala of the copper-colored mountain. And let's dedicate, and then I will take any questions or comments that anyone wants to get. But please, everybody, understand something very carefully. This is difficult stuff. That's why I'm giving you basic stuff and then a bit of the difficult stuff, and basic stuff and a bit of the difficult stuff. It doesn't matter if you get nothing from this. And it doesn't matter if you want to ask a question or you want to put something out the way you see it. Never think this is a stupid question. Please don't. Because if it occupies a space in your mind, then let's settle it. All I want you to do is, when you come to the end of this life and everything dissolves and all your family responsibilities dissolve, and you haven't got your house, and you haven't got to pack up boxes, and you haven't got to do this, and you haven't got to do that, that you say, oh, here I am. And that you can absolutely let everything be. That temporary identity is over. And now I will recognize who I am. And let's dedicate. And then I'm staying on. So you can really get what you need. I just want to say to all of you that this teaching is for everybody. It can be very simple, doesn't have to be as complex as Jigme Lingpa gives. It's just to know that you are more than your temporary identity. That's what you really are doing. And may all beings, I keep asking for these ugly leaders to try and see that they could use their charisma for such good purposes. Instead of killing and hurting and harming and maiming and stealing, they could use it for such beautiful purposes. Through this merit, may we all achieve all-seeing Buddhahood, and thereafter, once all harmful enemies have been defeated, may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Sonam die tamche zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene jeganachi balap tropaye sipe sole doadro warsho. Even if you look there in that poem of the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Now, each of those four are extremely important, because if you look at them deeply, they actually represent something in your true nature. So that whole cycle is then gone, and you've got no more birth and death. And you don't have to come back and worry about things. That's what we're looking at, by just getting to our true nature. It takes time, but it doesn't matter. We've got a long time to do it. Okay? A long time to do it.